The story of rice is as old as civilization. Its earliest evidence is from 12,000 years ago in China. From there, it gradually spread towards the east and the southeast. When it crossed into present-day India, it crossed with a native species, Proto-Indica, and gave rise to the current species of rice dominant in South Asia and Southeast Asia, known as the Oryza sativa indica.
During this period, in this process of domestication and local adaptation of those genotypes, farmers, ancient farmers, they also continued with different kinds of breeding experiments and selection experiments according to their needs, according to their soil conditions, environmental conditions, and their cultural requirements like taste, aroma, different other cultural requirements, cooking time, for example, and so on and so forth. And this process of domestication, selection and breeding experiments gave rise to thousands and thousands of varieties in different parts of the country. And recordedly, there used to be 110,000 varieties of indica rice in India alone. And that was documented by many rice scientists, especially Dr. Richarya, who was the then director of Central Rice Research Institute in Cuttack. But then when I myself worked with his own collection and this, then I found there were many synonyms. So that means the same variety had 2 or 3 names. If we eliminate these synonyms, then it comes down to 110,000 varieties, 110,000 varieties of indica rice in India. After the Green Revolution that began in 1960s or late 60s, in India, just a handful of the so-called high-yielding varieties, more appropriately should be called high input responsive modern varieties, they dominated and replaced thousands and thousands of local varieties. The result is that today there is perhaps no more than 6,000 varieties of indica rice left in this country.
Since then, rice is a principal staple grain in Indian food culture with over 1 lakh different varieties. Each type of rice has its own color, aroma, taste, texture, and unique properties that work best in different recipes such as boiled, fried, steamed rice, puffed rice, rice crisp, rice puddings, rice cakes, rice wine, rice chapatis, etc. Rice is so important across regions and class that it forms a pivotal part of socio-cultural ceremonies and religious customs. With the dark history of famine and food insecurity in India, it is important to conserve the biodiversity of rice varieties, which are currently under threat. Today, 90% of the existing varieties are not being grown by the Indian farmers, even though this diversity is the key to fighting climate change-related food insecurities. In a small district in Orissa state in India, Dr. Debal Das, also known as the Rice Warrior of India, is protecting the genetic purity of 1400 such varieties of rice and distributing it through an open source seed bank to farmers across 18 states.
So with this massive erosion of genetic diversity of rice is the major concern which motivated me to look into this matter. And I found and I was surprised that neither the government nor the research institutions were doing anything to conserve or to bring back some of the varieties which were shipped to the IRRI in the Philippines. And all the researchers and the academic institutions, the agricultural department of the country, the ministry, had no concern about it. So because nobody was doing anything, I started to think about it. I left my job, my salaried job in 1996, and devoted full time to conservation of these varieties. I started in Bengal with Basudha. I established Basudha, which is literally means the earth mother in Sanskrit, and I established the gene bank, seed bank exchange center. Actually we call it, it's a shorthand for gene bank, but actually it's a seed exchange center, exchange between farmers, between us and the farmers and farmer to farmer. So the idea is farmer to farmer, seed to seed, that was exchange. No money would be changing hands, because that was the traditional way of distribution of all these varieties, not just rice. Every single crop all over the world was never ever commercialized. It was all free exchange all over the world. That's how we are growing potato and tomato and brinjal is being grown in Greece, and tomato is in India, and chili in India. Today Indians cannot think any food, any cooking without potato and chili, but they all came from South America. Similarly, rice from India or rice from China is in Italy people are eating this. So they didn't think of this patenting or biopiracy, I mean any kind of proprietary action by this. Seed business itself came to exist with the introduction of the Green Revolution. Until 1960s there was no seed business, seed commerce. Seed was open exchange source, seed was an open source commons for the world. So this is the ideal, and we have established and we are continuing with this same traditional way of seed exchange among farmers for free. To reinstitute genetic diversity is the only option left to us. We have no other option, and we can't wait for certain institution to develop a genetically modified or genetically engineered magic variety. Farmers in this area who are whose land has no irrigation facility at all, or certain farmers whose land is flooded by water for more than 3 months, they are all very happy with these varieties, because those are the only varieties which can ensure their food security, because no other variety, no other modern high yielding or hybrid varieties can survive. Forget about yield, they cannot survive in those particular marginal farms, but these are. So that's the answer to the food security in those marginal extreme conditions, extreme environmental conditions, drought, long spells of drought, or too much rain, or too late rain, or no rain, or flood, and salt incursion, seawater incursion on the coastal lands. These are the most important effects of the climate change. So the frequency of drought, frequency and length of drought, and the frequency of flooding, cyclones, and the seawater incursion, all have been predicted, and we are all witnessing every year their frequency is increasing. So the answer to that is these varieties, which were already in our collection, in our accession.
Rice is the everyday man's food. In many places in India, rice is also provided in communal kitchens to working class populations. Rice is the most nutritious food that feeds India and is socially and culturally ingrained in the society.